If you watched Longhorn basketball coverage here on Longhorn Network, you no doubt recognize our next guest, Drew Gressett, a part of the Longhorn game day crew that breaks down what's happening with Longhorn basketball. Not only, of course, is Drew Gressett a part of that, he, of course, is a lifetime Longhorn, played for Texas from 2001 to 2004, and is the great local hamburger ambassador of the area. Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
And this is a little bit different because normally, you know, you're doing like different types of basketball breakdowns. So this is like a little bit different environment here.
Yeah, for sure. But you know, I watch your show every week and familiar with it. So pleasure to be on it.
Okay, so what in the heck is wrong with this basketball team then? Right, I'll just turn that to you, right?
Yeah, well, that's a fully loaded question to just jump the ball up. But obviously on a tough spell here. You know, we've been fortunate around here to have a lot of success, but past few weeks have been tough. But I think last night, second half, really the first half too, the turnovers in the first half killed Texas. Obviously that was a big deal, 13 turnovers. But I think for the first time in several games, I think I saw a recipe for success moving forward in the proportions of attacking the paint to three-point shots. Texas only took 10 threes last night, so that was welcoming versus the 26 they took against Baylor. So even though it was a loss and everyone's frustrated with the loss, I think there were some bright spots and some good takeaways from last night.
Here's a question I get from time to time. Folks will ask me, look, you've had a chance to call some great moments in Longhorn basketball history, blah, blah, blah. How difficult is it to call when the team is struggling? I would rather put that question to somebody who played and who was in the uniform, and you work with, of course, T.J. Ford, and you work with A.J. Abrams, you work with our crew there on the Longhorn Network game day telecast crew as well. You guys were part and parcel of a huge, great, successful run of basketball under Coach Barnes here. So what's it like as a former player to see these guys trying to fight through it, yet struggling through it a little?
For a former player and a guy that's close to the program, it's so difficult to go on TV after a loss and have to sit with Coach and think of a great question, you know, to ask him after the game. It's so much more fun when Texas wins, and so for the past couple of game days and home games that we've had, unfortunately we've lost, and so it's no fun to sit there. But you also understand the struggle and the grind of a season, particularly in the Big 12. You have perspective on the big picture of what still lies ahead in front of this Texas team and the opportunity that they have to get the train back on the tracks and stay together, circle the wagons, get everyone who's close in closer, and move forward. So you see both sides.
Plus, having been a player in the system, I would imagine, also gives you the perspective of knowing the work that's going on in between games, the practice, the hard grinding that's going on, that the layman or the general fan doesn't know because they're not at practice, so they don't see what's going on. You get a chance. You've been down that road to see what they're trying to do to remedy the situation.
For sure. It's a relentless grind, and in this time of year, and you'll hear Coach Barnes talk about it, you know, you got to be careful with 2 games a week, the physical side of it. The physical side of it's been built through the fall, and now it's the mental side of it. And not that they don't get after it in practice every day. The guys would tell you that they do, and they do, but practices are shorter. Film sessions may get longer, but the mental side of the game is so important now, and the execution side, that's what this team, that's what you begin to focus on, and that's the challenge this time of year, in my opinion.
What did you learn as a student athlete at Texas that helped prepare you, not necessarily for being a hamburger king here in the greater Austin area, but for the outside world, the business world, and going into that into that side of society? You
know, Lowell and I got into a friendly discussion last night and with AJ, who did the game with us, on the benefit of being a part of the sports program here at Texas and what you learn. And we were using it, we were actually talking about the football program, and we were just saying what they learned in Moncrief Newhouse is as important and as applicable in real life as what they're going to learn in the classroom. And maybe there's professors out there and people that disagree with me, but the facts are, in my opinion, that what you learn being around here and being able to sit here and do the guys come in and do shows with you, and they're interacting and they're traveling and they're getting cultured and they're working with teammates and they're listening to authority and they're having to constantly change the things. They'll work on one thing one week and it's not working, now they got to change and work on something else. And those are the things that you learn those things in college, being a part of a sports program, playing for Coach Barnes, that you then go out and you have to practice those things if you're going to run a business or be successful.
All right, we're going to ask Rick Barnes how much Drew Gressett really knows coming up, so stay with us. Longhorn Weekly here. We'll continue in a moment.
Yancey up top to Marcus Holland. Holland looking for Taylor, finds Isaiah, drives in, kicks it across the floor. Holland for three, good! DeMarcus Holland hits a three. The Longhorns are within 5. Timeout, Oklahoma State.
That was part of DeMarcus Holland's game last night. 4 for 4 from three-point range, 5 of 6 overall from the floor. Really helped the Longhorns try to pick up the offensive slack and rallying from behind to catch Oklahoma State at the end of regulation. Like you said, you continue to be impressed with how hard he works, but also to be able to have that kind of offensive production. You've been saying all along he's got that kind of game. We just haven't seen him shoot the ball from the perimeter that often, that effectively.
Well, again, he puts so much. Drew, you've been around. I mean, you know, he's the last guy to leave the practice court every day, and he stays up there, and he has majorly overhauled his shot from the first year that he got here. He had a lot of flaws, but the one thing that he had that I personally liked as a player was the motor that he has, where the way he can, you know, just play all day long, but his mindset is, and we talked about it earlier, that he knows he's a guy that we expect to bring the energy and defense, but he also has continued to develop his game where he's had to play point guard at certain times in his career. But and I will tell you, it goes back to a couple years ago when we were really struggling, and I told the coaches, I said, if we're not going to win, if we're going to lose with guys that really, really care. And Drew, you've been around the program a long time. I don't know if anybody cares about this program more than DeMarcus Holland.
No question. He's unbelievable, and not just obviously the offensive performance he had last night, but the job he did on Forte, playing both sides of the ball is so unique in basketball to have a guy like that. I mean, he's a special guy.
You know, I've asked Rick about this before, and I want to get your take on this, Drew, because the way that Rick talks about him, the way that you see his game, his intensity, his devotion to the detail, and how hard he works reminds me of a teammate of yours, Royale Ivey. And I mean, are there some parallel similarities there?
I think there's a lot of similarities, and you know, you take a guy like Royale who was under recruited or maybe not even recruited, and the similarity there with DeMarcus and those guys have come in, both of them with chips on their shoulder and really not backed down from one player ever since they stepped foot up here at the University of Texas. And I mean, I know Coach and his mentality and the whole staff, and you know, to have a guy like that to be the heart of your team and the ringleader of toughness is certainly a unique attribute that both those guys shared.
Well, and one thing that comes to mind when a guy like that, when you have that thing, it does kind of infuse to the rest of the team, doesn't it? They can kind of take
Well,
note
I think
from
a guy that has, and I've said it to him for a year and a half now, is Kendall. And Kendall, in the last 2 weeks, has done just that. DeMarcus has done a great job talking to him, and I thought Kendall, again, last night, did some things that he's never done, and one of them was he learned how to play through fatigue. He got tired, knew he had to play, and but he fought through it. He hit the wall, and that's what we talk to guys a lot about when, you know, you get tired. You know, how do you fight through it? And because you're going to hit it at some point in time, and it is a talent to be able to get through it. And last night, Kendall played the most minutes I think he's ever played, and he really worked hard and did a lot of things and made some great cuts. We just saw that one, and he actually made another one early in the game where he didn't get the ball. But the fact is, DeMarcus has had a great influence on him, and I tell you who they're working on, trying to get the same mentality is Jordan Barnett. We need Jordan to develop that. I mean, he's arguably the most athletic guy on our team, but he's learning things as I'm sure that he's going to have to do things he has never done. And Drew, you know that. I mean, all high school guys coming in, where Jordan would tell you that the high school team he played on, he was told to shoot it every time he gets it. You know, shoot it every time you get it. But and you know, you go to the Baylor game up there. You know, we put him in, and he does what a lot of high school guys would do. try to swipe at the ball, just plays like that. Those are plays, those are things we're trying to get him to understand. If he'll play on the defensive end, his offensive skills will take care of it themselves.
And as a former player, Drew, how difficult is it for a guy who hasn't had to do or been asked to do those things at the high school level for his teammates to try to be able to get through to him to understand on a teammate to teammate? It's one thing to hear it from a coach and the coaching staff, but to hear it from your teammates, how difficult a challenge is that for a guy to learn that skill and that particular trait of the game?
I think coming out of high school, particularly for a kid like Jordan who had such offensive talent and loved putting up big numbers in high school, to come in and buy into a defensive philosophy and understand. I mean, you talk about Kendall, who's a guy that's tough-minded and been around here for a while, but to understand just how hard it is to play those 4-minute games, throughout the course of a game, which is the way they break it down, and to play through fatigue, and a guy that's used to putting up big numbers and have a big-time offensive game. But Coach talking about Jordan's athletic ability, there's no reason he can't be a heck of a defender and also a guy that can put up big points. Talk about like what DeMarcus was able to do last night, being able to play both sides of the ball.
You go back, like even when you watch highlight clips where they show him making shots, then you see him, as soon as he makes his shot, just jogging down the floor.
Right.
That's where and then you watch DeMarcus Holland doing that. You'll see him sprint, make sure he's where he's supposed to be, and then he can take a deep breath. And one of the hardest things would be teaching a guy how do you go from play to play to play with a sense of urgency and do your work early and not wait till, I've referred to it before, you either play in the past, you play in the present, or you play in the future. And oftentimes he's playing in the past, where he's not getting ready for the present. And then the great ones, as you know, they're playing up into the future, pass ahead or a play ahead defensively and those type things. But Drew, I mean, you've seen it a lot. I'd like that. And again, this is not rehearsed, obviously. What's your take on what you saw and what you see right now of their team?
Well, I was telling Craig, and the second half of the game, even the first half last night, 13 turnovers was a huge part of the first half, and that kills an offense because theoretically you're giving the ball away 13. Those are 13 valuable possessions. But if you did the math, and let's just say you had 6 turnovers instead of 13, that's 7 possessions that you picked up, and the team was shooting 50% in the first half. So you score half of those 7 picked up possessions, and it's a 2 or 3 point game at halftime, and the momentum's totally changed. And then come out in the second half and really played a great second half and outscored them by 11 or 12. And so last night I thought there was a lot of great takeaways. Still, unfortunately, a loss, which but I thought that the team gelled well and proportionately attack the paint, which I feel like has been what you guys have been conveying for weeks now, and I felt like you got carryover for that for the first time last night.
Well, and the numbers are staggering when you break down the way we break it down in terms of what happens when we attack the lane, the painted area, and whether it's with a pass or a dribble, and it's just putting pressure. And again, I refer to it as the belly. You have to attack that belly, and if you get in there, a lot of things can happen. But to get there, everybody's got to be ready. And you'll see, like a guy drive, those post guys have to get to their spots and be ready to catch it and score it. But the guards have to come off not with their head down thinking they're going to get it all the way to the rim. They've got to see what's going on. But and you're right, those turnovers at the start of the game, and you know this, Drew, too, as a player, if all 5 guys aren't in unison, it's going to break down somewhere. Just because it's the split timing second of it. Like the play corner that we run a lot. I mean, that's as simple a play as you can run, but the timing of it with everybody is so important, and where everybody's looking. But that's where again, just the last night, the start of the game, we weren't even getting into what we wanted to do to really try to establish. John had a 6'2" guy guarding him, and we didn't get into it. Right. And there was no reason for that.
All right, we'll have more coming up with this week's edition of Longhorn Weekly here on the Longhorn Network and on the Longhorn IMG Radio Network.